Humanity is insane, Ambassador Draco thundered from the podium, his words reverberating through the stunned Galactic Assembly. The Denobulan's declaration sent shockwaves rippling through the gathered representatives of 100 spacefaring civilizations. Draco, haggard and exasperated, launched into a litany of grievances that painted humans as the most unhinged species in the known universe. They established colonies on worlds deemed uninhabitable, Draco fumed, worlds too hostile or unstable for any sane race to consider. Yet the humans charge in, heedless of the risks. He cited incident after incident of human recklessness. A diplomatic faux pas with the Zorgax Imperium, caused by a well-meaning gift of a potted plant, which the Zorgax considered a mortal insult. A nearly disastrous misinterpretation of a mining rights treaty with the Krillian Consortium, averted only by desperate last-minute negotiations. Draco spoke of humanity's growing reputation for irrational behavior, which had earned them unflattering monikers like the Mad Apes and Chaos Bringers. He recounted futile attempts to rein in human excesses and maintain vital trade relationships, as human corporations exploited loopholes and skirted regulations in reckless pursuit of profit. The final straw, the ambassador revealed, was a disastrously premature first contact with the newly discovered Velnari. Overzealous human explorers, defying all protocols, had blundered into Velnari space and committed a grievous cultural taboo. Now the nascent relationship lay in ruins, and the Velnari seethed with resentment. Multiple factions are demanding sanctions against Earth, Draco warned, reparations for slights and damages. Some even call for humanity's permanent confinement to their home system. He looked out over the assembly, his expression grim. Only swift and decisive action, in concert with human authorities, can prevent a war that could shatter the galaxy's fragile peace. As a heavy silence fell, all eyes turned to the human delegation, led by newly appointed Ambassador Tyler Ward. The future of Earth hung in the balance, and the next few days would determine its place among the stars, or consign humans to pariah status. Ward met those stares with a defiant glare of his own. Humanity would not go quietly. The stunned silence that followed Ambassador Draco's scathing indictment of humanity stretched into long, tense seconds. Tyler Ward could feel the eyes of the entire Galactic Assembly boring into him, awaiting his response. He stood slowly, straightening his suit jacket with a sharp tug. As he approached the podium, the click of his footsteps echoed through the cavernous chamber. "Esteemed delegates," Tyler began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Ambassador Draco's words paint a dire picture, but I stand before you today not to contest his accusations, but to provide context and perspective." He met Draco's determined eyes unflinchingly. Humanity is young, impetuous, and yes, at times reckless, but we are also innovative, adaptable, and fiercely loyal to our allies. As Tyler continued his address, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human colonies found themselves under siege as long-simmering resentments boiled over into violence. Trade routes were blockaded, businesses vandalized, and in some cases, remote outposts came under direct attack. The Galactic Assembly scrambled to deploy peacekeeping forces, but their efforts were hampered by the growing anti-human sentiment. Behind closed doors, Tyler huddled with his advisors, desperate for a way to stem the rising tide of hostility. Dr. Ella Summers, a brilliant xenopsychologist with a reputation for unorthodox methods, leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with intensity. "We need to change the narrative," she insisted. "Show the galaxy that humanity isn't just a loose cannon, but a valuable partner." Ella's words sparked an idea, and Tyler acted on it immediately. He reached out to Ambassador Draco, requesting a private meeting to discuss potential solutions. Draco, wary but intrigued, agreed. As the two men sat across from each other in a cramped, nondescript room, Tyler laid his cards on the table. "We're not asking for forgiveness," he said bluntly, "but we are asking for a chance to prove ourselves. Joint initiatives, cooperative projects, ways for humanity to demonstrate our value to the galactic community." Tyler leaned forward, his gaze intense. "We have unique strengths, Ambassador, perspectives that could benefit us all." Draco listened silently, his expression inscrutable. Finally, he spoke. "I will consider your proposals," he said slowly. "But understand this, Ambassador Ward. The road ahead will be long and fraught with challenges. Your people have much to answer for." As the two leaders parted ways, neither noticed the small, innocuous device attached to the underside of the table, a hidden camera planted by a Velnari operative. The footage of their clandestine meeting spread like wildfire, igniting fresh controversies and realigning political alliances across the galaxy. In the heart of the assembly, factions schemed and plotted, jockeying for position in the new galactic order. Some saw Tyler's overtures as a betrayal of humanity's interests, while others viewed them as a necessary step towards reconciliation. As the debates raged on, one thing became clear. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the coming days would determine its place among the stars. The footage of Tyler Ward and Ambassador Draco's clandestine meeting spread through the assembly like a virus, igniting a firestorm of controversy. Heated debates erupted in every corner of the massive chamber, drowning out attempts at order. "Treachery!" bellowed a Krillian representative, his crystalline appendages vibrating with fury. "The humans seek to manipulate us all." Before the situation could devolve further, a piercing whistle cut through the cacophony. All eyes turned to the central podium, where a towering figure now stood. Admiral Zoran Krell, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Peacekeeping Forces, surveyed the assembly with steely willpower. His scaled skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Esteemed delegates," Krell began, "I come before you with grave news that supersedes our current squabbles." The chamber fell silent as Krell detailed the peacekeeping forces' discovery of a Velnari plot to destabilize the galaxy. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing intercepted communications and weapons shipments to extremist factions. "The Velnari seek to pit us against each other," Krell concluded, his words heavy with implications. "They fan the flames of our discord, waiting to seize power from the ashes of our conflicts." A shocked murmur rippled through the assembly. Tyler Ward seized the moment, striding to the podium with purpose. His voice rang out, clear and resolute. "We stand at a crossroads," Ward declared. "We can continue to bicker amongst ourselves, playing right into the Velnari's hands, or we can choose a different path, one of unity and cooperation." Ward's gaze swept across the chamber, meeting the eyes of alien delegates. "Humanity has made mistakes," he admitted. "We've been reckless, impulsive, but those same traits that have caused friction can be our greatest strength against this threat. Our adaptability, our willingness to take risks, these are the qualities we need now more than ever." As Ward spoke, Ambassador Draco rose from his seat. The Denobulans' earlier hostility had melted away, replaced by a grudging respect. He approached the podium, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ward. "I second Ambassador Ward's call for unity," Draco announced, his voice carrying the weight of his years of diplomatic experience. "The Velnari threat affects us all. We must set aside our differences and work together." In a gesture that would be replayed on news feeds across the galaxy, Ward and Draco clasped hands. The assembly erupted in a mix of cheers and skeptical muttering. Not everyone was convinced. A Zorgax delegate, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with agitation, voiced her doubts. "Pretty words and grand gestures," she hissed. "But where is the proof? How can we trust the humans after all that has transpired?" Ward nodded, acknowledging the concern. "You're right to be skeptical," he said, "which is why we propose a joint task force, human and alien experts working side by side to investigate the Velnari threat and develop a unified response." As debates raged over the specifics of this proposal, a small group gathered in a secured briefing room adjacent to the main chamber. Ward and Draco huddled with Admiral Krell and a handful of trusted advisors, including Dr. Ella Summers. "We need to move quickly," Krell growled, pulling up a holographic star chart. Red markers pulsed ominously at the edges of known space. "Our long-range sensors have detected a massive buildup of Velnari ships. They're preparing for something big." Ella leaned forward, her mind racing. "We need to get ahead of their propaganda," she insisted. "If we can expose their manipulations, we might be able to sway some of the more militant factions back to our side. As the group debated strategy, an aide burst into the room, face pale with urgency. "Ambassadors, Admiral, you need to see this." The aide activated a nearby view screen, revealing a live feed from a human colony world. The tranquil scene of a bustling settlement was shattered as sleek alien ships descended from the sky. Velnari troops poured forth, weapons blazing. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The Velnari had made their move. The galaxy teetered on the brink of all-out war. The view screen flickered, revealing scenes of chaos as Velnari forces descended upon the human colony. Tyler Ward's lips pursed, his mind racing through potential responses. He turned to Admiral Krell, eyes blazing with perseverance. "We need to act now," Ward said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "What options do we have?" Krell's scaled brow furrowed as he pulled up a holographic display of known Velnari positions. "Our intelligence suggests a major installation in this uncharted system," he growled, highlighting a remote sector. "If we could infiltrate it, we might find the evidence needed to expose their plot." Ambassador Draco leaned forward, his earlier animosity towards humanity set aside in the face of this greater threat. "A strike team," he suggested. "Small, elite, able to slip past their defenses." Ward nodded, a plan already forming. "I know just the people for the job." Within hours, Operation Firestorm was greenlit. Colonel Jack Hawkins, a grizzled veteran of countless covert missions, stood before the hastily assembled team in a secure briefing room. "Our objective is simple," Hawkins stated, his voice gruff. "Infiltrate the Velnari base, extract vital intelligence, and get out alive." He gestured to the lithe figure beside him. "Rachel Davies, our tech specialist, will handle the data extraction." Rachel's fingers danced over a holographic interface, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Their encryption is good," she said with a cocky grin, "but I'm better." A low growl emanated from the shadows, drawing all eyes to the imposing figure of Serana, Ambassador Draco's Terrellian bodyguard. Her cat-like eyes surveyed the room, assessing each team member in turn. "Serana will provide muscle and local expertise," Hawkins explained. "Any questions?" The team's stealth shuttle slipped through the inky void of space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Velnari scanners. As they approached the planetoid base, Rachel's hands flew over the controls, bypassing security protocols with ease. "We're in," she whispered, a bead of sweat trickling down her forehead. The strike team moved swiftly through the base's winding corridors, Serana's enhanced senses alerting them to approaching patrols. They reached the command center, where Rachel immediately set to work on the main computer terminal. "Hurry," Hawkins urged, his eyes darting between the door and the progress bar on Rachel's device. Alarms blared, and the sounds of heavy footsteps echoed from nearby hallways. Serana unsheathed her vibroblade, taking up a defensive position. "Got it!" Rachel exclaimed, yanking the data drive free just as the first Velnari troops burst through the door. What followed was a desperate fight through the base's twisting passageways. Hawkins and Serana worked in perfect tandem, covering Rachel as she guided them towards the extraction point. Velnari energy weapons scorched the walls around them, the air thick with ozone and the sounds of battle. They reached the shuttle bay, diving into their craft as Velnari reinforcements poured in. Rachel's fingers flew across the controls, overriding safety protocols and blasting them into space. As the planetoid receded behind them, Hawkins allowed himself a grim smile. "Mission accomplished," he said, clutching the precious data drive. "Now let's see what secrets the Velnari have been hiding." Back at the Galactic Assembly, the encrypted data proved to be a goldmine of information. It detailed the Velnari's elaborate scheme to ignite a galactic war, manipulating tensions between species for their own gain. As diplomats pored over the evidence, Colonel Hawkins approached Ward and Draco with a daring proposal. "We've struck a blow," he said, his eyes alight with the fire of victory. "But we can do more. We can capture the mastermind behind this plot, Supreme Commander Cal Zora himself." Draco's expression wavered between concern and grudging admiration. "It's too risky," he protested, but Ward was already nodding in agreement. "Do it," Ward said, locking eyes with Hawkins. "Bring us Cal Zora, and we'll end this war before it truly begins." The strike team's next series of missions took them across Velnari-controlled space, each raid bringing them closer to their ultimate target. Rachel's technical wizardry allowed them to stay one step ahead of Cal Zora's forces, while Sirana's combat prowess saw them through increasingly desperate firefights. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Loren, a Velnari scientist, approached them through back channels, offering vital intelligence in exchange for asylum. "Cal Zora's inner sanctum," Loren explained, transmitting schematics of a heavily fortified bunker. "I can give you the access codes, but you'll only have one shot at this." The assault on Cal Zora's command center was the team's greatest challenge yet. Hawkins led the charge, his tactical genius pushing them through waves of elite Velnari guards. Rachel worked her magic on the base's systems, sowing chaos and confusion among the defenders. In the heart of the complex, Sirana moved like a silent predator. She slipped past the final layers of security, cornering the surprised Cal Zora in his private chambers. The Velnari commander reached for a hidden weapon, but Sirana was faster, her vibroblade pressed against his throat before he could react. "It's over," she growled, as alarms blared and the complex began to shake around them. The team fought their way back to their ship, Cal Zora secure in their custody. As they blasted free of the disintegrating base, Hawkins allowed himself a moment of triumph. They had done it, captured the architect of the Velnari's nefarious scheme. But their victory was short-lived. As they raced back towards galactic assembly space, urgent transmissions flooded their comms. A massive Velnari armada had been detected entering known space, poised to unleash the very war Cal Zora had engineered. Hawkins exchanged grim looks with his team. They had won the battle, but the real fight was just beginning. The Velnari armada loomed on the edge of known space, a dark cloud of destruction poised to engulf the galaxy. Colonel Hawkins gripped the arms of his command chair, his fist clenched with tension. The bridge of his cruiser, the Defiant, hummed with nervous energy as the crew prepared for the coming storm. "All ships, report in," Hawkins barked, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. One by one, the ragtag fleet of human and alien vessels signaled their readiness. It was an unlikely alliance, forged in the crucible of necessity. Denobulan battle cruisers flew alongside human frigates, while Zorgax fighters darted between lumbering Terrellian dreadnoughts. As the Allied fleet approached the Ultor Nebula, Rachel Davies' voice crackled over the comms. "Colonel, I've got something. The Velnari Vanguard, they're here." The nebula's swirling gases parted, revealing the sleek, predatory shapes of the Velnari warships. Hawkins leaned forward, his mind focused. "All ships, execute Maneuver Omega. Let's show these bastards what we're made of." The battle erupted in a fury of energy, weapons, and explosions. Human cruisers wove between the massive Velnari ships, their agility allowing them to strike and fade before the enemy could respond. Rachel's jamming technology wreaked havoc on the Velnari targeting systems, turning their fearsome firepower into a useless light show. Sirana's mercenary squadron tore through the enemy formation, their unorthodox tactics catching the Velnari off guard. The Terrellian's voice was a low growl over the comms as she led her pilots on one devastating attack run after another. For a moment, it seemed the tide was turning in their favor. Then, disaster struck. "Colonel!" Rachel's voice was tight with alarm. "Admiral Krell's reinforcements. They're under attack." Hawkins spun to face the tactical display, his blood running cold. A massive Velnari force had appeared from nowhere, their cloaking technology allowing them to ambush Krell's fleet. The Allied line began to crumble, leaving Earth's forces exposed. As Hawkins barked orders, trying to salvage the deteriorating situation, a new signal cut through the chaos. Tyler Ward's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim but determined. "Hang on, Colonel. The cavalry's here." A swarm of ships dropped out of Slipstream, human privateers led by Ward himself. They plunged into the fray, buying precious time for the battered Allied forces to regroup. The battle raged on, a desperate struggle for survival. Hawkins watched in horror as Ward's flagship took a direct hit, its hull buckling under the assault. The ship spiraled out of control, crashing onto the surface of a nearby moon in a plume of fire and debris. But Ward wasn't done yet. In the chaos of the crash, he had launched a daring boarding party onto the Velnari flagship. Hawkins could only imagine the fierce struggle taking place within the alien vessel. "All Allied ships, make for the slipstream corridor," Hawkins ordered, his voice hoarse. "We'll cover your retreat." One by one, the surviving ships jumped to safety, until only the Defiant remained. Hawkins stood on the bridge, watching as the Velnari closed in. He thought of Earth, of all they had fought for, and made his decision. "Set collision course for the Velnari flagship," he said quietly. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Defiant surged forward, engines screaming in protest. Hawkins closed his eyes as the distance shortened, bracing for the impact. In a blinding flash of light, the human ship collided with the alien dreadnought, both vessels disappearing in a massive explosion that lit up the Ultor Nebula. In the stunned silence that followed, the remaining Velnari ships began to retreat, their will to fight shattered by the loss of their flagship and Supreme Commander Calzora. Days later, in the somber halls of the Galactic Assembly, delegates gathered to hear the full extent of the Velnari conspiracy. Calzora's testimony, secured at such a terrible cost, left no doubt about the aliens' warmongering agenda. As the truth spread, a wave of revulsion swept through the galactic community. Species that had once viewed each other with suspicion now found common cause in their outrage against the Velnari plot. On Earth, memorial services were held for the fallen heroes of the Ultor campaign. The names of Colonel Hawkins, Rachel Davies, and countless others were etched into monuments of remembrance. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. In a hushed ceremony, Ambassador Draco presented Tyler Ward with the highest civilian honor. The human leader stood before the assembly, his face bearing fresh scars from his ordeal on the Velnari flagship. "We have paid a heavy price for peace," Ward began, his voice carrying the weight of recent events. "But in our darkest hour, we found strength and unity. Human and alien, we stood together against a common threat." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the gathered delegates. "Let this be a turning point. Earth pledges to become a more responsible member of the galactic community. We will work tirelessly to build trust and foster cooperation among all species." As Ward spoke, Draco watched from the sidelines, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. The Denobulan knew that humanity's wild nature had not been extinguished, merely tempered by shared adversity. It would take time and vigilance to ensure this hard-won peace endured. The galaxy stood at a crossroads, the path ahead uncertain but full of possibility. As Ward concluded his speech, a ripple of applause spread through the assembly. For now, at least, there was hope for a brighter future.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.